So I'm always going to look at it because there's new ways of thinking, there's new technologies, there's new information that comes, and we want to be able to adjust and iterate on that.
My name is Matt Reiner, Managing Partner at Capital Investment Advisor, CEO of Wellness Strategies, an author, podcast host, and also a speaker to the wealth management community. My mission is to help every family in this country have access and be served by a human financial advisor. That we all have to live in the moment and not try to force progress too quickly. Let it happen and commit to a long-term strategy in your life, in your business, and in your investment portfolio.
And now, your host and my dad, Matt Reiner.
Erin Voisin, EP Wealth Advisors. Welcome to FutureProof Advisor podcast. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. How are you, Matt?
I'm doing fantastic. It's so great to have you. You were kind enough to join us in the past and kind enough to join us today. Things have evolved and grown, and so I'm just super appreciative of you joining us here again. How's everything been in the world of Erin and EP Wealth Advisors?
It's been good. It's been busy. Big growth goals and lots going on, but all exciting things for us.
One of the areas where we talked about in our pre-work was about some of those growth goals, those 5-year and 10-year goals, which I'm really excited to talk about. I'm really excited to see what has led y'all to where you are. And some of the things that we saw and we talked about in the pre-work, I think there's some really opportunities for us to pull the string on to help other firms. So I want to get into that. Before we do, though, I just want to open it up. We call ourselves the FutureProof Advisor podcast. And I want you to just go into this a little bit blind. And I'm curious, though, what does being a future-proof advisor mean to you from your standpoint?
I mean, I think when I hear future-proof, it's like, what I really kind of, to say it literally, is what does the future look like? I mean, not thinking of the here and now. I sort of think of it as how are you going to serve clients in 5 or 10 years? Like thinking of the evolution that we have in our industry with, fintech and AI and robos all coming in. Just what are you going to be doing to set yourself apart 5 years from now? And so I think I'm constantly thinking about the future versus the current year that I'm in.
Yeah. And looking at some of the answers that you had that we talked about was, and we'll get to some of this about like trends and everything that you're doing and how often you're asking what if and question yourself, is that you do have that mentality of the future proof. And I love that you said 5 to 10 years. I think it's always, everybody talks about 10 years, but in the world we live today, I can't imagine what 10 years in the future is going to be like. I mean, 5 years is a little bit of a stretch of how fast things are changing in the world. So we're going to try to talk about it maybe on the 5-year mark. But one thing, going into a foundation of being future-proof, in my mind at least, is your mental mindset, your personal activities, your personal strategies that you have. And one of the areas in the pre-work that we talked about was self-reflection. This is something that I've invested heavily into, and it's been a great benefit, and something that you said that you do weekly. And I'm always curious because weekly is more than the average person, to be honest. There's a lot of people that just go forward and they avoid self-reflection because they want to just look at progression. And it's an interesting dichotomy or an interesting challenge. I'm curious on what you do, what your strategy is, what your routine is for your weekly self-reflection.
So I feel like, every Friday I try to keep it like to no meetings, like very few, if anything. Like I want it to be sort of like I call my decompression day of just what happened this week, what went well, what could have gone better, how can I prepare for the next week? And then one of the things I think I do that I've done for the last 2 years is I work with an executive coach. And I meet with her every Friday. And it's a great time because that's what we do is like, okay, let's talk about the week. Like, how'd it go? If I had big conversations or, things she knows went on, like we'll really dig in and talk about it. And then she'll set me up. Like, so what's happening next week? Like, what do you think is going to happen next week that might not go well? And like, let's prepare for it. And so that's been really helpful. And I think that's gotten me into the habit of now making Friday like my reflection day.
What have you seen come from that? What have you seen as the impact to you, maybe both personally and professionally, of setting that aside? And how has your team responded to giving you that space?
So they give me the space because I give them the space. It's actually a department rule that we are not to have internal meetings on Fridays unless absolutely necessary. So what I want for myself, I want for my team. So if I'm going to have that day, they need to have it. And if our other part of it is if a meeting has to happen on Friday, it has to be before noon because I want to make sure everyone has that afternoon to just like go downhill. And I think what this has really done for me is I view the next week more proactively. To use the term, I don't really get like the Sunday scaries as much anymore because I spend the time Friday to sort of prep for what's coming. And then working with the coach, if there is a meeting or something that I know is going to get me, fired up or riled up, I get those emotions out like ahead of it. So like, it's like almost like we role play and like, okay, tell me like if this, like, what do you think is the worst thing that's going to get said in that meeting that's going to, get you going? And I'll say it and she'll be like, okay, so react right now. So it's almost like I get it all out before the things happen. And so it just sets me into like a calmer mindset. And I just think I go into meetings like ready, prepared, calm, and like channeling more curiosity than reaction.
Yeah, I love that idea. And I've found, my routine is a little bit more of I do like my planning. Like the Friday decompression day I think is incredible. And I try to have the afternoon on Friday free. And I spend a little bit of Sunday basically having some thoughtful time of what is it that I need to get done this week and how much time do I have to get it done and can I get all that I want done that week? And then I lay it out. And once it's laid out and written out, it's basically like go time, Monday through Thursday or Friday morning. It's just like executing and doing, but I'm present because I know what I'm expecting to do. And then I know that I don't have to worry about like, am I getting the right things done? Because I know I have prepared time like you do on Friday. And it just clears the mind and makes you just a better, more focused and creative and curious individual, I think. So how's your team reacted to that?
I think they really like it because, again, like it's giving them that same decompression time. They feel like they can, go into the meeting and really just like go into meetings calmer, get things out, get things off their plate. Like we kind of structured tasks. So a lot of it's been like practice management. Like, let's look at your week and like knowing if we're going to have a Friday like this, like what's best served to be done on Friday and what's best served to be done Monday through Thursday. So I think we've been really methodical to try to make, work as efficient as possible. So that I always call it like, what's the brain activities, like the brainless ones, right now we're going through a CRM transition and we have to watch a bunch of videos. I'm like, that's a great Friday afternoon activity. That's not anything you're going to do client facing. So like when is your brain sharpest? Do your client work. When your brain isn't the sharpest, do sort of your internal admin type things. And I think that's where we've picked up a lot of efficiency across the team.
I love that. I think that makes a ton of sense. And speaking of reflection and self-reflection, now moving to kind of team reflection, this concept of postmortem, doing postmortems, it's something that actually was born out of, I think it's born out of like the technology world, project management world, when you're running like specific projects. I'm curious, and you say that you do it after every process or project implementation that you do, a postmortem, which, well, for the listeners, why don't you give us a definition of postmortem? And I'd love for you to walk us through how you and your team do this that is effective and has been effective for y'all.
Yeah, so we're fortunate to have a project management office internally at EP. And so they kind of help spearhead that. And so anytime we launch anything, whether it's a new system, tool, process, it's getting the team together after to say like, okay, what went well in this process and what could be done differently? So last year, for example, when we launched our trust services offering, we did a postmortem, myself, the director who assisted me, and then the project management team. And we were like, let's go survey all the people, that we had involved in the process to figure out what could have been done better. And then it was also that self-awareness, like what could we have done better or differently to roll out the next service offering? And my role is geared towards that. Like I have to keep innovating and developing and enhancing what we do. So the postmortems become essential if I'm going to continue to be successful the next time. Sort of like you can't fix things if the feedback's not given. So it's like I need the feedback to fix things going forward in order to make sure the next project is successful.
In a postmortem, I'm curious because you're doing it and you have a project management team, which I think is incredible. There's something to be said about that. And if you're not big enough to have a project management team, there's plenty of project management tools that can help with a lot of this as well. Two questions, they relate. Is in a postmortem, are you comparing to preset KPIs that you set? You set KPIs at the beginning of a project of what you're expecting, and then Well, let's start there. And then do you bring them back in postmortem? How does that work into the process?
Definitely. I mean, you always go into like what is that measure of success going to look like? What's going to get us there? And then like the outcome of where we got. And so, and that's why like the postmortem is essential to do after a few months. Like you need some traction to actually have some data to reflect on, are you hitting the KPIs or why aren't you? And so I think that's what we have to look at is what did we set out to do and accomplish? And are we tracking to that? And a lot in our world, it's something that's going to be client facing and related to whether it's new assets or growth or retention, which are all very quantifiable metrics.
This is more of a psychological, and I'm just basing on your experiences, right? Is the outcome of a project decides a person's view of the process that it was used to get there, right? Like whether it was a good process, and then we adjust. So then if we're asking after the outcome, then we're getting this kind of biased lens question of like, did it work? And it's like, now it's outcome based, which isn't really the benefit, isn't what we want from a postmortem. So have you seen that be the case within these postmortems? And if so, or if not, how are you overcoming that like during the process of more surveying or more understanding before we know the real outcome from there?
Yeah, it's actually a great point. And so we just redid our entire tax offering last year. And so it's tax season now. And so part of what we'll do is, a postmortem after tax season to understand how did the new processes work, survey clients, et cetera. But to your point, it's after the fact. We can't correct things afterwards. So one of the things we're doing right now is every other week, we're hosting an advisor office hour session. So essentially an hour for advisors to jump on and give us live feedback, like things they've heard from clients, things they're experiencing, suggestions they might have, so that we can try to make incremental changes throughout tax season while we're in it, and then set us up to take action immediately after tax season. I don't want to wait and then have like 2 months of like feedback time because, tax season comes at you fast. And then with the, the extension delay, you're right back in it.
I love that. And the forced need to change gets us more comfortable with the change that's necessary. I think that's such an important way of doing it, because I think that the challenge of postmortems is that we're biased. And so if you can do it more of these interviews or these office hours or surveys, whatever it is in between, you get more realistic. Some people talk about, I know that like Amazon has done it and some of these other large tech companies have like a diary basically, to where you just keep a diary of what's going on and then you review that afterwards as well. And that gives you more of like an in the moment analysis from there. And you're talking about a lot of these meetings, right? Your meetings to kick off for project management. I know that these are only specific to like a process or a new project or a new implementation, but you also mentioned y'all have grown drastically. I mean, I were talking about before we start recording was, I see y'all at Citywire every week, basically acquiring another firm, a tax firm or a wealth management firm. Y'all are busy out there. And when we were doing the pre-work, it was, you don't use an organizational system or an operational system like EOS within the business. So I'm curious, how do y'all operate and keep coordination and cross collaboration and this focus of a continued focus of growth, but also when you have a focus of growth, you need ops and you need compliance and you need marketing all working together as well. What's y'all's strategy of how you operate day to day? I mean, it's a near what $31 billion firm right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have like a project management software, so that's where we can track a lot of the stuff, like, okay, who's involved, like to your point. And then honestly, we've really kind of, I would say, survived maybe the last little bit. And I think this is something for us that is a little bit of a work in progress on more of a working group style. So like task forces, just like weekly meetings with the integral people that are making it happen and just like keeping each other on task to really put, accountabilities, deadlines, due dates, etc. So that's been our biggest way of, I would say, doing it. And then, pulling in people as needed. The biggest thing we don't want to happen is a bunch of people sitting in a meeting that don't need to be in that meeting. So we're very thoughtful, like, okay, what's the goal of this week's agenda? Who do we need in that room? Let's get together for 30 minutes, 45, whatever it is. Great, break next week. So it's really just been like getting the right people, setting deadlines and moving things forward.
Okay. And the coordination is the executive team meeting weekly or monthly to ensure that the other teams underneath and et cetera are making progress?
Yeah, so our management committee meets every month. And so that's essentially our executive team and then essentially the leadership of all the functions. So we meet together monthly, and that's where everyone has the opportunity to, inform or discuss something that might be necessary to talk about with the group. We submit like agenda items ahead of time. So we're very aware of, okay, this is a hot button issue. We need to address it. But again, one of the top things that's on every agenda is what are the strategic initiatives, and like, let's talk about an update there.
I think that's incredible. It's worked for y'all, and this is why I love this podcast, is I get to learn about other businesses, because we all stay in our own four walls so often, and to be able to understand and learn how other people are doing it shows that there's so many ways that we can be successful in this business, and there's no one right answer. I want to go on a tangent for a second, and then I want to come back into closing out with some more around the business. But I am a big kind of tech geek, and I like to do testing on different, technology programs and tools that are out there. And you mentioned that you had tested a new technology as recently as this week, or you test one every week. So I'm curious, what did you test out this week recently?
So the most recent one is a software called April. So it's a tax planning, tax prep situation. So again, I talked about like we just redid our tax offering, and if you ever want to do a podcast on just anyone who offers tax prep, that could just be more of a therapy session maybe for anyone, but it might just be a good thing for people to listen to and cry. But honestly, it was a way for us, like, with trying to be more tax planning focused, but then still be able to provide a tax prep solution at what you can kind of refer to as like a lower cost. I mean, that's the trade-off you have. You either have to be increasing prices to lower demand, but demand just keeps going up with all the CPAs retiring. So their solution's unique in that they have the planning aspect of it, and then they can take it to prep. But it's very AI, very digital that, they offer. I think he said it best, it's a do it yourself, do it with me, or do it for you type approach. And so interesting, this is their first tax season, so relatively, new firm, but something that we did just look at.
Did you feel that it delivered on what you wanted, or was it still missing some areas that needed to grow in?
I think it's really interesting. I think it's definitely stuff we're going to continue to have conversations on, because, just trying to work on operational efficiency, one of the things I hate is being in 8 different softwares. Like, again, if someone could just design this really robust financial planning, CRM, tax planning software, I'd buy it. And I think that's where like this kind of takes 2 components that we have separate now and does it in one tool. And I think that could be really beneficial. And then again, the AI component, like that's an area that fascinates me that I'm really trying to dive into. So that's one of the things I really like, is just if we can be more efficient leveraging AI in this business to allow our people to be in front of clients faster, everyone wins.
Music to my ears, Erin. That's music to my ears. That's if we can get the whole industry to be believing and thinking that way,
yes,
gosh, we'll be able to serve so many more people. We'll be able to serve so many more people. That's a great one. I'd love to look at that one as well. And the therapy session for having a tax firm inside your business, I am there for you, because but I'll bring in our president to have that conversation, who's been leading our integration of our tax firm. It would be a therapy session. It'd be a therapy session, I think. So, but y'all have done it successfully. So I'm curious. Let's just talk on that. Let's go on a tangent for a second. What has been the key to doing it successfully?
See, I mean, I don't want to sound like self-deprecating here, but I wouldn't say it's really been successful. I think we've been able to offer a solution. And I think one of the things that is challenging is tax prep in a wealth management firm just has different expectations, a different process. I mean, you have data at your fingertips. Like, you're not waiting for a 1099. You're not waiting for the donor advised fund information. Like, the client knows you have it all. So there's just a lot of layers to, getting all that data. And then turnaround time expectations. They're used to hearing from an advisor who will respond same day or next day, because that's client service. I mean, my own accountant, I think I talked to once during tax season, and I'm lucky if I get a response, but clients just don't have that. So there's just been a lot of, different things to think about. Also, just a lack of people that are willing to do this work anymore. And so how do you leverage technology or, other types of tools to get the, what is really manual data entry work done? And in my opinion, not the highest and best use of the skills and the team members that I have.
I agree with you. I think I think everybody that has this has this situation, feels a very similar way. And I'm curious because you said something right out the gate of a wealth management firm with a tax firm incorporated in it. Do you see it differently if you're a tax firm with a wealth management firm in there? Because if you lead with wealth and come with tax, do you think it's a different challenge or less of a challenge in your mind?
So I think because as a wealth management, you're already in the plan. Like you're ingrained in the client, you're doing the planning, you know them, you're proactively helping out the things that hit that tax return. I think when tax firms are now trying to add wealth management, it's a little bit in the inverse. I think they've been so used to getting things reactively and then saying, oh, we're going to do planning now, but their flow has been backwards. And so I think it is more challenging to get them to be more forward thinking when they've been reactive for all the years they've done the taxes. So I just think that's why for wealth management, you're set up a little bit easier to do the tax prep because like it's tying a bow versus like starting fresh.
Yeah, I think that, and also the note you made on hiring in that area, it's very hard, and it seems like it's a very and I know if there's accountants listening to this, they're not going to like what I'm going to say. It just feels like it's a ripe area to be overtaken by AI, not to displace jobs necessarily, but like, why can't we just have the tax? I mean, the tax code's already in ChatGPT. Like, why can't we just refine that to make it a little bit better to do taxes?
I've said this. I mean, my own tax team has heard me say this. I mean, and it's nothing I shy away from. And that's partly why when we redid the offering, I said, in 5 years, we're talking about FutureProof. I'm like, bots are going to be preparing my tax return. Like I want my tax practitioners like developing skill sets in tax planning and taking all that knowledge that they have and applying it to the planning, not sitting in a tax software, crunching in a 1099 or a W-2. So it's like, I feel like for accountants listening, like you all have an amazing skill set that I think is being underutilized.
Yeah, take the knowledge and combine it with other knowledge to create wisdom as opposed to just using knowledge as a monolithic way of just executing a task. And if you can do that and put pieces together, you now have created a moat around yourself that it's hard for other people to do. They can go get it from ChatGPT, but they don't have the ability and the cognition to put it together with what it means to the rest of their life. I think that's great. So I want to talk about, we're going to get to 5 years here in a second, but before we get there, I want to talk about your segmentation strategy. So AUM is how you segment. Is that right? You just use AUM. And how many different segments or tiers do you have within EP Wealth?
So currently we have 4, but it's definitely something that we're discussing right now is in terms of as we think about our future, who do we want to serve and in what way? And do we have to segment differently? So like right now we have 2 tiers below $1 million. So 500,000 to $1 million and then 500,000 and below. And one of the things we're considering doing is just rolling it up, like a sub $1 million offering, like condense that into a tier. And then, right now it's 5 enough is like our top tier, but 5 to 10 and 10 plus can be very different types of clients and how we want to serve them. So we're also thinking about that.
Has this segmentation, because I think y'all were founded back in 99, right? Is this segmentation strategy been basically the same since you've known it? It's always been AUM, I assume?
Yes. Yeah, as far as I know. Yeah.
So I'm curious, have there ever been discussions inside the firm of adding more than just AUM to a segmentation strategy? I'm curious on how y'all are using segmentation to create value differentiation, or is that not is that the wrong focus? You're like, Matt, that's not how we focus on delivering differentiated value.
No, it's a really interesting point and things we have had discussions on because, depending on the lead source of that client, the profitability of a client is what looks really different. And so we've had discussions about, do we need to look at, revenue per client and profitability of a client and segment more that way? Because, for an example, if we have a $5 million client that our marketing team source versus that came from one of the custodian referral channels, they essentially pay us differently. And so do we think about it from that perspective? Right now, AUM has been the cleanest. But I think everyone in this industry knows like AUM doesn't necessarily dictate complexity. I could have a $600,000 client with a huge business and we just haven't recognized the assets. And I could have a $10 million client, with an IRA and a trust account. So.
Right. Yeah. And I think I'm always interested because I think segmentation is something that's like, because like, I mean, we've been AUM, right, forever. And it's a matter of like, does a $3 million person need the same thing as $1 million person, or the $5 million? And does more wealth mean they need, that they had the same psychographics and the same worries and fears and everything of that nature? And so, I always like to ask firms when I talk to them, with regards to segmentation, is how do you all look at segmentation to help? Like, how do you use segmentation to enhance the client experience?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I look at my team in particular, it's the level of skill set of the team member. So, like our newer, more junior team members tend to service our smaller clients, and then as like our kind of core client is serviced by like our CFP, sort of our senior planner roles, and then our higher level people then work with our higher net worth, more complex clients. So we've really tried to ensure like, okay, if you have higher AUM, not necessarily higher complexity, but we're servicing you with like our best team members in theory, people that have been in the industry the longest, that have the designations, who, had the experience that maybe our junior people haven't gotten yet.
Yeah, I think that makes a ton of sense. That makes a ton of sense. All right, let's go to 5 years, and then we're going to wrap this up. This has been fantastic. I mean, we could talk about tax, and we could talk about AI for days. So, but you've got a team and work to get to. All right, so we talked about 5 years. Y'all have some ambitious 5-year goals, right? You want to get to 80 billion is 5 years. 80 billion. So we're going from, what was 31 billion the right number? Is that where we're at right now?
Correct. Yep.
31 to 80. All right. That's with a B, not an M. 40,000 families, and providing what you put in here is truly comprehensive and family office-like services. What does truly comprehensive and family office-like services look like to EP Wealth, in the eyes of EP Wealth? What does that look like?
I always going to say, like, we want to be able to answer yes. If a client says, can you do this? Yes. And is it going to be every single thing? No, because trying to build that, sustain it, and make everything scalable isn't. But if we're talking about like a high net worth segment, we really want to try to build out like the true family office services that those people are looking for. And we're doing a lot of client research and market research to figure out like exactly what that is. So we're not just sitting here like finger in the air, here's what we need to build, but it's making sure that our clients can come to us first. Like, we want to be the go-to. We want to be the first phone call. We don't want them, trying to call all these other people to get an answer. It's, can they come to us because they feel like we have truly offered everything that they need, or know the people and can facilitate and make it happen if we don't.
I want to do a pre-mortem on this 5-year goal.
All right.
A pre-mortem. And I want to ask the question, what do you see as the reason you all do not hit this goal?
That's a good question. I mean, I think it's a mix, because we do rely on, our inorganic growth strategy. It would be, that would play a big role, is, okay, can we not find firms that we think are like-minded that we want to partner with? That's one. I mean, the market's the obvious number two, like if the market just takes a dive. And then I think 3, it's as if as a leadership team, we can't come together and hit our initiatives and work together for that. And I think that's probably the biggest one. I think number 1 is solvable. I think 2 is out of our control. But if our leadership team can work really cohesively and together, we'll hit that goal, I think, with no problem.
I'm curious, are y'all doing anything internally to develop leadership skills? Do y'all have any leadership training? I know you have business coach, which I think is phenomenal. It's one of our future-proof questions that we talk about. But do y'all have what are y'all doing for leadership training inside the organization?
Yeah, so with 2 things. So last year we hired our first ever chief people officer. So now we have an entire role dedicated to people, which has been great. And then she brought on a managing director of, essentially talent management. And so she has been a leadership coach. And so she's coming in to build out really robust leadership training at the different levels. We're going through it right now as we're doing goal setting, and it's been really refreshing, jumping in to talk with our, people managers about how to lead an effective goal setting meeting, having difficult conversations. So we've really taken the time to invest in people to make that happen internally, because to your point, having the right leaders executing on this is so critically important to hitting that goal.
Yeah, I think that it's hard to get firms to dedicate time to leadership, because it's not it takes time. We've been doing it for 7 years, and we're starting to see a lot of that value, the cohesiveness and the ability to work together as a leadership team, and with our now 20 plus leaders that we have. But at the time we did it, we thought there's a lot of people that thought it was a waste of time. And you have to stay consistent with it, and you start to see these results because sometimes leadership is both self-leadership and professional leadership. It's not just how do you lead people, it's how do you lead yourself. And some people are like, this seems like a waste of time, but that's a lot of it. You got to be able to lead yourself in that side of it. Okay, last 2 questions, and I'm letting you out of here. What is the most common question on your clients' minds these days?
I mean, right now it's everything kind of post-election. It's just, what do you think's going to happen this year? I think that's a big one. There's tax, provisions expiring. There's a lot in the news right now that's causing, volatility in the market. So I think mostly right now it's just like, do you have a crystal ball and can you tell me how this year is going to go?
Do you have that crystal ball by chance?
I do not.
Yeah.
No, I think it's
okay.
a lot of.
I saw you looking over there. I saw you
through.
looking over there. I thought you were looking at the crystal ball. I was like, well, don't hold the answer to yourself. All right, last question. This is a selfish one because I love to learn from others that are smarter than me. I love to learn through reading. So I always ask, what's one of those books out there that you think everybody should read, or maybe that you most recently read that you enjoyed?
So one book that stands out, so we actually, her name's Jennifer Moss. She actually spoke at one of our summits a couple of years ago. She wrote The Burnout Epidemic. And so when you talk about just like the decompression and all that, like her whole book is just on how work and lifestyle and everything really changed as a result of the pandemic and just how people got burnt out and how to deal with it. And that book has always stuck with me. And one of the things she says in that book is statistically at 2:39 on a Friday, people are done. Like they check out. Like it is just a statistical thing. And so partly that's why we started the Friday thing, because your brain just isn't working. I know if someone tries to set a 3 p.m. meeting with me on Friday, you're not getting a good air. Like you are getting a brain fried, like I'm ready for the weekend person. So I just thought she had some really good nuggets in there. And it's really made me think about, as a leader, how I lead people who are dealing now with the aftermath of the pandemic. People that had families when school closed, when people's, significant others didn't get to go to work. And just what people value now, I think, has also shifted a lot. And so I think that book really helped me as a leader and a people manager.
Incredible. I haven't heard that one. I'm now going to put it on my list, and I can't wait to read it and discuss it with you over in the future. Erin, I have always appreciated our friendship. I
likewise.
am always cheering for you and EP Wealth and what y'all are doing. I'm always inspired by all the things that y'all are doing. So I can't thank you enough for joining us here on the FutureProof Advisor podcast. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it.
All right. Well, we'll talk with you again here soon. Stay well, be well, and we'll talk soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you.